Okay, welcome to another vintage fishing reel service and repair video. In this episode, I'm going to attempt to clean and lubricate an Abu Garcia Ambassadeur 5000. I believe, my understanding is the way that one can date these, at least the older ones, is to look at the number on the bottom. And the first two numbers is the year, and then the second two, I believe, is the month. So if that's correct, that would make this a 1981, made in March of 1981. I've had this reel for quite a long time, since the 80s. I didn't buy it new. I think I traded for it for something, and boy, I thought I hit the lottery, because that just, when I was a kid, of course, you couldn't afford anything new like that, and it just looked so pretty and high dollar, and so I was pretty excited to get it. Although I haven't used it a bunch, and I haven't used it in decades. But one of the things was that it was missing this plate here that helps retain the nut for the handle, and it was missing that screw. And so I found that part and that screw, and just recently got that, put it on, but I haven't been into it yet. So the only thing about it that, in my mind, obviously it's not been messed with in decades, so it needs it anyway, but it spins fine, but probably not as good as it would if it were properly cleaned and lubricated. I am not at all comfortable doing bait casters. I've done a few, but I get nervous with them. They just seem a little bit more complicated, and I just don't know as much about them. But we're going to go ahead and try this and see what happens. This is, of course, one of the newer versions, because the older ones from the 60s had 4 screws here instead of just a pin here. There would have been another screw, but a nice original Abu Garcia Ambassadeur 5000 from 1981. So I'm going to start off by pulling off the left side plate, doing the easy side first, and see where we get from there. Well, I have no idea what this apparatus is for. It popped out when I took off the left side plate, and I was not expecting this. In fact, I have no idea what it does. It doesn't seem to mesh with the gear here. It doesn't mesh with the gear on the spool when that goes in there. That only runs the this white gear. So I have no idea what that's for. It's held in place by the side plate screws, but it doesn't mesh with anything. So I don't know if that's an extra, where you can get a different spool with another gear on there that engages here, or what. But I guess I'm not going to worry about it. Everything should operate without this assembly being engaged. I really have no idea what it's for. One other thing I noticed is that as I was taking this apart, somebody's been in there before and lost one of the brakes here. These are supposed to slide out via centrifugal force and provide some drag on this race right here. So you can go without them, but it does help to reduce backlash, and unfortunately this side's missing. The other thing I don't really understand is the purpose of this spring. So I could take off this E-clip, and then there's this spring here, but the spring is sprung. It isn't pulled out, so I have no idea what that thing does. Just kind of weird. It just rests on there, and nothing. Instead of being sprung out where you push in and then it springs back out, it's just all sprung down like a slinky. So I have no idea what that's for, what the purpose of that is. So I'm going to take this, whatever this assembly is, out for now. I'll put it back in just so that it's there until maybe someday I figure out what it is. I am going to remove this gear here so that I can clean the post upon which that rests and make sure that that's moving as smoothly as possible. And I'm going to take that gear to the sink and clean it really good. Put this screw back in for now so I don't lose it. And then I'm going to remove the level wind feature here, and I think this just slides like that and out. And then let's see here. Pull out the worm gear, and then I can take off this and take out the pawl. So that can be cleaned and oiled. That looks like it's in really good shape and really clean. Okay, so I'm going to clean these parts. And come back and reassemble that side, and then take off the right side plate and clean and lube those. Okay, I'm back from the sink. Got these parts cleaned up. I'm going to take a little steel wool and polish up the spool shaft. And the end of the worm gear. Okay. I noticed a little bit of pitting and scratching here on the spool where it rides in the housing. I'm going to take some very, very, very fine sandpaper and sand that smooth. I believe I did have this in salt water at one time. This is aluminum, but it's not immune to some corrosion. But I want that to ride as smoothly as possible. So I'm just going to polish off those little nicks and pits in there. Okay. And I guess I'll go ahead and, well, probably not critical, but I guess I'll go ahead and put a drop of oil. Where'd that Paul go? There it is. Guess I'll go ahead and put a little drop of oil in there. Obviously I'm going to oil the worm gear, but maybe just a little bit in the housing for the pawl. Yeah. Put the cap back on. And make sure that's tracking. Now we can get our drive gear back on. And I'm going to put a drop of oil around that post. And set that back down in there. And screw that back on. Alright, so now we can slip this thing back in. Get back down there. And then there is a felt oil pad inside here. I'm going to go ahead and nail that while I'm at it. That's about the only way I can see how that thing actually fits on there as I started putting it back together. But I just don't see how those gears mesh up or what the heck they do. And I'm having a hard time getting this to fit on there. I don't know if that gear is, if those red gears are binding with that. Here it goes. Okay. I think that's the way it's supposed to go, but again, I don't don't really know what those red gears do, unless it's some way of slowing down the spool. I just don't know. Get it back together and see if it works at least as well as it did. But I've never seen those. I mean, I saw some parts for sale that had something similar in one kit, but all of the other, of course, there are different variants of the 5000 over the years, but every one that I looked at, I didn't see any of that chuck wagon bunch of gears in there, just the one drive gear. So I'm going to just go ahead and admit I have no clue what it's for. Smooth spins fine, just at least as good as it was before. So I got it back the way it was, and it's cleaned and lubed where appropriate on that side. So now we'll start on the right hand side, and we'll take off this keeper. And there are two different keepers. One of them, I think, this is the short version, where the hole is much closer to the nut than the long version. So if you do order one, it's good to measure from the center of the post that nut rides on and that hole, so you get the right one. This one's the short version. Again, who knows who's had this apart and whether this thing goes back together correctly, or whether it's been put back together correctly. It's always good to check a parts diagram or schematic. Definitely some scrud in there, some dirt. Okay, so I am not going to disassemble this whole thing. I'm going to take out the gears and the drag stack and so on. And then I'm going to flush this with penetrant and clean the rest of this without pulling all of that apart. Okay, so I'm going to have to remember the order in which things go in. And these washers are bent, so this first one looks like convex side up. And this next one looks like the convex side is down. And then we have some kind of is that a fiber or plastic bushing? Looks like a plastic bushing. Then you've got a shim washer that looks to be brass, and then a stainless washer. And then these darn Chinese ladybugs are driving me nuts. Okay, then you've got a fiber washer on the back side of your main gear. And then there's this little tension spring here. And then, I assume this is a drag washer here as well. Well, I hate to ruin that trying to get that out of there. There it comes. Okay. Definitely some grease and gum there. And then you've got your anti-reverse gear here. Why is this thing not? Seems like that should come out of there. Looks like it's pressed in. This thing looks all boogered up. Looks like that got smashed. That anti-reverse pawl or dog there. Looks like it's been smashed. Yeah, it was smashed so that it wasn't supposed to slide over that gear there, it looks like. And this was, I don't know if you can see that, but that was smashed together. I've got it spread out now, but that was smashed together. I think that's supposed to slide over the anti-reverse gear there so that fits in those cogs when you go back. So that's interesting. Alright, I'm going to try to pull the pinion gear, let's see here, out of the yoke here. So that can be cleaned. That, I'm not even sure if that was sitting in there properly. And I'm going to take this apparatus, the rest of this apparatus, to the sink and get that all cleaned and scrubbed out. Okay, I got all these parts cleaned up and I'm ready to reassemble. First with the pinion gear. And go ahead and put a little grease on that. Now we can add our drag washer. It goes on the back side of the main gear. And we're before I do that, I'm going to sneak some oil down in there. You know, probably should just lightly grease the drag gear, drag washer, just very lightly. And then the main gear. And then the next drag washer, that thing could use some replaced probably. It looks like it's starting to craze a little bit. Put a little bit of grease on that. And then this keys in. I better probably stop and look at a parts diagram schematic before I go any further. Okay, so the best that I can tell is after you put in the click wheel, then there's supposed to be a spring washer, then a drag spacer, then the drive shaft bearing, and then the drag shim. So I don't know, I've got two spring washers here. And so again, I am really not sure whether or not this was put together, back together correctly, and whether I should just go with that, or if I should go with the schematic, which may or may not be the correct schematic for this year. So I'm going to just do it what makes most sense to me, and hopefully that works. So I'm going to go with the spring washer, the drag spacer, the bushing, the next, let's see, I'm going to go with the spring washer, the drag spacer, the drag shim, the bushing, and then another spring washer with the concave side up on both of the spring washers. And hopefully that works. I'm gonna go ahead and grease the drive gear. And I'll probably OCD about this and spend some time looking through schematics and try to find the one that's most specific to a 1981 and see if I've got this right, and if not, I'll get back into it and fix it up. didn't oil the worm gear. Maybe that'll help a little bit. Actually, I think that is noticeably a little bit smoother. It wasn't turning nearly that many times before. So, but I'm happy to have gotten in there and just checked it out and cleaned it out. So now I have some kind of peace of mind that it's clean and properly lubed. I just want to check some more parts diagrams, try to get one specific for this year, and make sure that drag stacks in there properly. But I do think that is now working a little bit more smoothly. Spool's working pretty smoothly. Yeah, that's definitely operating a lot more smoothly than it was before. You can go a number of revolutions before it stops. And testing out the drag, hold my thumb on the spool, you can hear the drag clicker working. And of course, if you tighten down the star drag, you'll see a definite increase in the drag. So I'm happy with that. Much more smooth than it was before, and I'm sure it's going to cast much more smoothly. So there you have it, for what it's worth in terms of seeing inside and what may be involved with cleaning and lubricating an Abu Garcia Ambassadeur 5000 from 1981. Okay, thanks for watching.